Rich, 30,000 foot view. How are we looking right now? And then I have specific questions.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be a different year. I've tried to explain to people that, think of it like when you're looking at the early vote and, what it means for the overall results. You're basically trying to bake the same cake, right, Andrew? But sometimes you just add different ingredients at different times. But ultimately, you're still using the same recipe to win, right? To bake that cake, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So but there is some caveats to this. And that is the research is very clear. Voters vote, and their voting method is greatly influenced by the party and the party's leaders' strategies for getting out the vote and what they tell people to do. So Democrats have, embraced early vote and vote early, not just early, but early. And because of that, in recent election cycles, we have really seen them put their best foot forward, and then sometimes they have a little burst at the end. But for the most part, that's how they intend to vote. So Republicans are voting at exceptionally high rates for early voting. And I got to tell you, we just had a national poll that it's embargoed still for a little bit, but it won't be for long. I could talk to you about it now. But it actually is much more in line with what we know about the early vote than some of the other polls we have seen. And, ultimately, the Democrats are underperforming. There's no way around it. They need a bigger surge at some point here in several of these key states. They do.
All right. So Rich, perfect setup. Underperforming, they need a surge. We've talked about John Ralston in Nevada saying, hey, it's not time to panic yet, but these votes aren't coming in. I don't know where the Clark County firewall is. PA, their 1.1 million firewall out of 2020 is down to what, like 380,000? I have no idea what that is, but I do see something concerning, Rich, and I want to get your take on this. Women are outperforming men right now. It's like 55-45. This is it's concerning if you're a Republican because you think the hidden abortion vote, you're thinking females tend to gravitate to the Democrat Party a little bit more, at least the gender divide in this election is such. Are we concerned? Because you can see from partisan voter affiliation, Nevada, Arizona, other places that Republicans are outperforming, and yet we have this gender divide. Make it make sense.
Let me help you make it make sense right now. So when we were researching how to get Republicans to vote early, I mean, it's a dramatic change in behavior you're asking people to do in a very short period of time. What became very clear right away is that Republican women were much more willing to vote early. They were willing to change their behavior. They were easier to convince. Andrew, we were even testing phrases, words, right? And men were just turned off a lot more, but they were skeptical about early voting. You can't call it here's a great example. You can't say vote early and put it in a drop box. Can't do it. You say the word drop box, men, especially Republican leaning men and Republican men, they're out. They're gone, Andrew, and they're not doing it. Drop box is crooked to them, and that's it. Most voters don't like drop boxes, by the way. But if you say vote early and drop it in a secured location, Republican men will say, okay, tell me more. So it absolutely, positively does not surprise me that even among Republicans, women are more of the vote when it comes to the early vote. Early in person, men like that more, especially Republican men. When it comes to dropping off on election day, right? They don't mind that. Arizona, you know it well, right? Those people who come in and drop off to the polling place on election day, men love that.
So Rich, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I'm just simply saying, and then the polling that we did, which people should go and digest and look at, you're going to see that in action. And later, even later mail will start to be more mail than it was, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, but definitely the early in-person as it gets closer to election day, and it already is. You can kind of see it already. Certainly in-person, men will vote closer to and on election day.
So to sum it up, though, Rich, you're more at this point because of the tendency for men to not want to vote early as much as women. Yeah. At this point, you're more looking at the partisan divides and extrapolating that
Sure.
nationally to get the trend. So you're more looking at the
Sure.
R's versus the D. You think that's more important than the gender divide?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And by the way, I
Okay.
mean, it wasn't as big in 2020, but we did see, of course, more female in the early vote than male. And at the end of the day, it was 48.1% male and 51.9% female. It could end up being the case that it's a more female election. 2020 was more male in 2016. These things do change back and forth here and there a little bit, but men are not suddenly going to drop off and be 45% of the electorate. I don't, number one, I don't believe it. Number two, it's never really, that's a dramatic change from one year over the other. They just indicate to us that they are much more likely to want to vote on election day. And a lot of these states just started in-person early voting, Andrew. They just started it,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
last Saturday,
Yeah.
Michigan just started it. So give it some time.
So I want to take our attention. That's great insight, Rich. I think that's fantastic. Plus, I mean, it seems like a lot of Republican women are part of this early voting tsunami
Huge.
that's been happening on our side.
But
So
can I just say real quick, Republican
absolutely.
women fueled Donald Trump's nomination, not Republican men. This is something we had been
What do you
going
mean?
over for a very long time. In most of the early key states, Donald Trump was polling higher with Republican women than he was with Republican men. Republican men were much more likely in certain states to want to support Ron DeSantis than women were. All right. So we just forget this stuff sometimes. We really do.